Guys, we are back in public session. It is 7:05 p.m. The council did have a need to go into closed session prior to the meeting. Councilmember Baker is out of town. She is apparently off to Normandy with band, so can't wait to hear from her when she gets back. This is everybody's favorite meeting agenda ever. I mean, it's very short. We only have 2 proclamations next week for LGBTQ Pride Month and the 40th anniversary of the Herndon Centennial Golf Course. Any comments on either of those 2?
I said in my email before, I'm for both of those proclamations.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, already.
And then is there any other comment on the proclamations? We have no public hearings. The town manager was telling the council earlier there were 2 items that were kind of pacing to be on this month, and then for various reasons they didn't make it. So I did inquire about possibly just postponing and doing them in July, but we'd already moved at least one of these, so we thought, why not come together? We'll probably have a big crowd for at least one of them, so we will convene next week. There is one proclamation on the consent agenda, which is the 25th season of Friday Night Live, which will be presented at, I think, the June 28th Friday Night Live. So, any comments? This is like the most bizarre meeting.
It's like Kafka.
Yes.
Were we going to talk about the landscaping and the signage?
That was
July. Oh, that
continued
got
to
moved
July.
to July.
Yeah.
Okay,
July,
for
yes.
some reason I thought it was June. Okay, thank you.
Well, we thought about
Somewhere
June,
else,
but that was only another week, so we wanted to give
Yeah.
them time to actually do it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to roundtable. Who would like to start? Anyone?
I have highlighted some stuff. All right, I'll go.
Okay, great.
All right, so one thing I wanted to mention is Herndon Festival. Kudos to the team, Cindy, great festival, and if you ask me personally, I like this space better, venue better. The reason is it was more spacious, it was safe, because it was not on the road. Traffic was well managed, and then the downtown businesses were open. So I like it, and then probably we can bring more footfalls next year for sure, because this was the first time maybe people didn't know about it.
Sure.
You know, anything's can happen, but change is not always easy, but change is the only thing constant, right? So I like it, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
You should fill out the survey.
I did actually.
Okay.
I did this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Bill, and then Siggy.
Yeah, I do want to echo what Pradeep had said. I was at the festival and I was asking first responders, DPW, just logistic, because I was looking at it from a logistic point of view. And Cindy, you should be very proud of what you did. And I can tell you, I know for a fact there were 5 people who were totally against the move of, you know, where it was going. And well, I'm just saying 5 people who they let me know in a very spirited way. But I will say that they all flipped the script. In fact, one person pulled me aside and said they were at the Optimist tent listening to the music and then seeing the carnival rides, and said even though it wasn't downtown Herndon, it reminded them of Wildwood, New Jersey. So, which, you know, bring harkens summer. I was like, well, it's still the festival. So just, it was, you know, just well done, and you should be very proud. There was a lot of positive feedback, and, you know, I think this was a good first step. I mean, obviously there were some hiccups on some things, but, you know, I think the overall tenor was just marvelous. You did a great job. You should be very proud.
Thank you. Siggy.
So I want to echo what everyone has said. I was surprised and pleased at how well it went off. As you know, there were serious issues with the nonprofit booths, but other than, I mean, I know that there are lots of wrinkles that will be ironed out over time. I just want to thank you guys. I stood at the marshalling station on Friday night, and people were pouring in still at 10:45. They were expecting to see fireworks, I think.
Never on Fridays.
Yeah.
Never on Fridays.
Never
So
on
they
Fridays.
were
Well,
Thursdays and
yeah, they
Saturdays.
got there
Never
right
had it
before
on
the
Friday.
end. Yeah, well, we also have never had it there. So, but I don't say that in a negative way. I say
Yeah.
people really enjoyed it up until the end.
From
When they had to come on, when they were forced to
All
come
good
home.
things must come to an
Which the police like that because they could open up all those fences and just push them all out of the carnival area quickly and efficiently.
Yes, and they did a great job. I would like, since we're getting started on the summer and we no longer are, worrying deeply about the budget and so forth, I think it's time to start talking about the Arts Center and how that will be managed. And what's gonna go in there, because we haven't really discussed this in a couple of years, and the time has come. Obviously, we're not ready for it tonight, but, I would like us to discuss it as soon as we can and just think about it, because we have plenty of time to work through the issues that concerned us.
If I can caution you to stay focused on closing. Stay focused on getting closer to closing and then open that conversation.
Yes.
There's just so much to do in my conversations with Comstock, my conversations with our staff. We have a lot, we're on step 3 of, how many did you quote me on
Well,
that?
I don't know. I'll say 150.
Oh,
Yeah. So let us, if we can get further into that
Sure,
list.
but I don't want us to get
No, and we
to the
can't.
point.
We can't because we have to get to a design at some point, and so operations has to be determined before we get to a design. So that is, the design isn't imminently needed, so.
Okay,
And the art center isn't gonna be built till the back end of the project, it's the last phase of the build. So we have a little bit of time, so let us focus on closing, 'cause again, there is no art center operation if there is no art center. So let's keep this.
But once we're at
keep this train on
closing,
track. We gotta get to closing.
This is a priority.
And then because getting there expeditiously is critical, so economics don't squirrel this deal. Because economics can squirrel this deal.
okay. So what's the process for us getting where we need to go out of the 150 steps that we still have ahead of us?
Right now, Comstock has they have some things going on to tune the cost of the project. That will dictate some maybe engineering changes, maybe not, maybe, there's some things that happen there. We have to work towards getting to lending. We are in the room with the lending negotiations because we have to protect town interests. And a tri-party agreement, we gotta get that back to you to be adopted.
So
We
I-
have a series of building permitting issues that have to be done, and so there's others.
So how many processes are gonna come to the town council?
Just the tri-party agreement.
Just the tri-party agreement, and you're estimating that?
I won't know until Comstock gets their bids back from their contractors. They look at their suppliers, get their pricing, look the pricing against the pro formas, determine how much, if there's anything that has to change in the project to get to the number they need to get to make their internal rate of return work. Then they would have the number what they would need to go lend or borrow, and that's when they would start the lending process. Again, a lot of that's dictated off of Comstock's internals, but in the meantime, we are doing some things on other areas. We still have to get the leases done on at least one other parking area. We've got to get a lease done for art space, even though we've worked on some LOIs, and that's so there's been, but we have to get leases as opposed to LOIs. We have to still report out on the Brownfields grant regularly.
So why would we discuss it 2 years ago, but it's too early to discuss it now?
I made a rookie manager mistake. I hate to say that during my review, but I made a rookie manager mistake.
All right,
And we took our eye off the ball.
you're fired.
And we took our eye off the ball.
Okay.
And I think that's why it was a question Mike O'Reilly and I were talking, and he kind of talked me into it, and I probably should have stood more firm on my question. Not saying Mike was doing anything wrong, he was just looking after his organization and his organization's needs. And I was more trying to help him, and we got down a path, and it kind of took our eye off the ball. So.
But we also had people who work for Comstock saying that we needed to discuss it back in that.
They weren't too hot and heavy on it. We kind of dragged them into the question earlier than I think they would be in the question.
Okay, those are the ones that I talked to told me that they were really upset that we weren't.
Were they in engineering or were they in legal?
No.
Okay. That's the rub. The engineering, legal folks, and the CEO was not into that question like that.
Okay.
And I was talking to all 3 of those parties. That was a distraction to the overall. We've got the primacy of the build, then the operation of the build. It was kind of putting cart before horse. And I hadn't thought it through very well, or I probably would not have done that way.
All right, so how
But
can
that
we-
way, you should ding me on last year, should be on that, not this year.
Okay, well, we can ding you on that. But I am concerned that we don't wait until right before we're working on the budget. Because at that point, everybody's trying to figure out what we can afford, and we're not able to think things through carefully the way we really need to with this.
I understand.
So,
I can't promise, I can't,
Right.
again, the timing, these two things are on independent paths. So I will certainly strive not to do that.
okay.
But I can't say when will be the appropriate time to start having that conversation. But again, you all can have the conversation, I'm not saying don't, I mean, that's your prerogative. It's truly your prerogative. I'm just advising you that closing is critical. This isn't done until we close this deal. Nothing is done, nothing is certain until we close the deal. We passed a milestone, passed a big milestone, but we've got to get it closed.
All right. Talk about it later then, thank you.
Yes.
So I'd like to pick at that scab.
Please.
So I would offer then, if there is something in the realm of an executive level, briefing updates in closed session, I think that would be something that would benefit us. I personally get asked all the time what's going on. And it's a little hard to say, well, I really don't know.
I understand.
Or what I should say or shouldn't say.
Okay.
It's just, I think, me personally, it would help if we had some sort of outline on what's appropriate to communicate. And if it's parallel paths and these things are in flight, we can do that. We're executives, we can certainly communicate that. But I think where I'm stuck is probably in the same place you are. We don't really know.
Okay.
And there's rumors, there's innuendos, there's all these theories and a lot of misinformation, and I just think it's coming to a point where we should know something other than I don't know just yet. So I would request for an executive level high brief in closed session if that's appropriate.
I will yield to my colleague.
Well, we're counsel, I mean, we can
Well,
request
there's
that.
certain things that can
You
be
have
under
to have
closed
an
session.
You have to have an
to see
exemption,
that
that's why I'm giving my colleague for advice on
We-
the exemption.
We can
Or
do it.
have 2-on-2s.
So, yeah.
We do two and twos.
There you go.
So I think that the exemption of the sale of the property would be an appropriate exemption under the Virginia Code to have a closed session to discuss the status of the sale of the property. Period. And
So
then-
you're saying
So-
we
so-
do have an exemption?
And,
Okay.
I mean, and if there's something that is not covered by that exemption that needs to be discussed, that you want to be discussed, you can certainly do two on two.
Let's try that first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try what, 2-on-2s or
The
closed session?
exemption?
Exemption for-
Okay, closed session, and
Closed
see if we can't get to everything there, then we do
Yeah.
second.
Absolutely.
Works for me. I'll
Thank
put that
you.
on my list of things to make sure.
And I'm not going to pick at any more scabs. I would like to echo what I have heard is a complete success of the festival. I think everyone I've heard from had very positive things to say, a few suggestions, but that's natural because you're not going to make everyone happy all the time. I was personally proud that as I walked around and I looked around, I saw a lot of Latinos that I didn't know, and that, quite frankly, I think were from out of town. So I think it was certainly a draw for a lot of families in that group. The feedback I did get was there was a variety of vendors, there was good flow. More than a few people didn't like the chairs. They preferred benches or something. I mean, that was one suggestion. I mean, just take it for what it is, right? I mean, it's a learning thing. People like benches because, the picnic tables and just kind of like hang out that way. And it wasn't green enough was the other comment I heard, right? I mean, just, again, for what it's worth, but I personally thought it was, considering where we shifted and the sort of, logistics around moving that, I thought it was a complete success. So, congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I will tell you, I concur on the festival. The class of 2002 was down there in Herds. My son Mike and his buddies were all down there on Friday and Saturday night, having a blast. And they too said something about the chairs. They weren't too hot on the chairs. So maybe instead of the black carpet, get the green that looks like,
We asked for green, they sent us.
yeah, because Signe even has a neighbor that has
Yes, I
fake
have
grass
really
in
asked
his
for blue
yard.
chairs, too.
And it really looks real, so, except when the weeds grow through it. But I thought that was really great. I did get some thank you notes from the Navy ROTC event that we went to, that people were thanking Pradeep and I for showing up. And also the Memorial Day service. Thank you to everybody that showed up for that. And if you can't talk about it here, can we get a briefing on the water issue? The turn off that shouldn't have turned off?
And that was, I can certainly tell you what happened.
Okay.
It was just a mistake.
That's what I
we got
figured, but-
We received a work order, and it said turn off water, and our guy ran out, turned off the water.
Nice.
But didn't see that it said June 4th.
Yeah, that's,
And the
But-
guy works for USA too.
Efficiency.
But if we can pause, the win out of this, in my world, was that he immediately owned up to it. He was apologetic. He didn't try to obscure it. He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to run from it. He was incredibly sorry. And I thought he was thinking I was there to fry him over it. I just wanted to find out what happened. And I actually commended him for owning it. And don't worry about it, mistakes happen. Just look at the date next
Just go turn it
time.
back on.
Just look at the date next time, we're cool.
Sounds
Okay.
like they've been empowered to do right.
That's good,
So
all right.
that is the water, the mistake. We have a lot of water things going
I
on.
know, I was like, oh no, what happened?
With the water one, this is-
Don't repeat
But
the
the
same
last
mistake,
but
right?
not
Make a
least-
new one.
That's right. Always
Last
make
but
a
not
mistake.
least, Gracie came to town.
That's right.
My brother drove her in. We had numerous audiences at my house for people to drop in and see her. She had a blast. Took her around to see people around town. She made it to the festival very briefly, and just a little too hot for her. But I love the festival location. I thought it was a nice, secure place. And I noticed that the traffic wasn't so bad around
Yeah.
town,
Oh,
because
it was
normally
amazing.
what happens to me when it's been downtown, and I never gripe because I don't want my neighbors to go medieval and start griping. So last year, if I had to go to Safeway, it would take 45 minutes to get home from Safeway because of all the traffic, which we had to do for safety reasons. But I was like, wow, I can go somewhere. And I drove through town several times, and the downtown had people all over the place. So it was really nice. And the businesses told me there was even a couple of funerals that went on because they were able to do that. And all the businesses were thrilled.
I know they were thrilled.
Yeah, so
It's a
It's
win-win
interesting
mostly.
because there was a
Totally
post that
win-win.
said the downtown was a ghost town.
That
Do what now?
is not true.
No.
I drove through noon on
that was not
Saturday.
true at all.
Noon on Saturday, it was the same vibe as you'd always get.
7:30.
Noon on Saturday, it
in the
was
morning,
awesome.
Saturday was packed.
There were also people that said the festival was terrible, but they hadn't actually gone.
Details.
No, it won't be good, so.
I hated the movie. Haven't seen it, but I hated it.
But the corn dogs were great, the Ferris wheel was awesome, the hat guy came back. thought
I was
it
all about the
great.
pretzels that were as big as a tire.
The man in the yellow hat.
So good.
Thank you. Anything else? Mark?
That's it.
So I won't belabor it, Cindy and I chatted a little bit here and there, but change is hard. Northwest Federal's never gonna be downtown Herndon. This is not gonna feel that way, but when you get in there at night and the carnival rides are on, it's the people that make the festival. And people were really showing up. I think that the only real legitimate bummer is that we can't pull off fireworks at that location because of the fire marshal. And I think some people thought it was just we decided not to do it.
Right.
Even though we've said many times the reason why. So I had something I wanted to just throw out there and see if this might be something to consider. And I did run it by Friday Night Live before I brought it up publicly here to see if they thought it was even feasible. But I wondered if it might be something that staff would want to look into the possibility of, on the Memorial Day weekend of Friday Night Live, on that Friday, it's always a very big crowd, it's a 3-day weekend, would it be possible for us to do a fireworks show from the golf course as usual on that night to commemorate, the start of summer? We could mention Memorial Day and the observance that's happening on Monday, and then also promote the festival. It's the next weekend, right down the street at Northwest Federal. So people could have their summer fireworks. Maybe it would start new traditions. I know there are a lot of people that have had a backyard party every year for 30 years, at the festival. Well, maybe it could become a Memorial Day thing. So, and maybe it's a crazy idea that I haven't thought about logistics. I realize that, but that's really the only thing that I heard consistently that I thought, it really is kind of a bummer not to have those fireworks. So if anybody has a different idea or something, I had thought at first maybe the first Friday Night Live, and I asked Doug what he thought of that, not knowing if there's a budget or anything to make any promises, but his concern was that sometimes the weather's iffy and it's early in the season, and actually someone else, it wasn't my idea, but someone else suggested, well, what about Memorial Day Friday? So just an idea to throw out there. We don't have to, if the council thinks it's not a totally crazy idea, is it something that we could ask staff to just look into?
I have a crazier idea.
Go for
Surprise
it.
fireworks.
Oh.
Is that a flash mob?
Flash mob
Flash
fireworks. Well, when we first moved to town, it was
Try it.
surprise fireworks. When I'm sitting in our living room on a random Thursday and I all of a sudden hear something, oh my gosh, what's happening? I open my front door and I can see the fireworks and I went, I love this town. So anyway, it's really just a ploy for me to be able to see fireworks, from our yard, but just a thought.
So another option that I had been thinking through, and yet again, I haven't thought through the logistics of it, is doing it during festival at the golf course at a specific time that people know is gonna happen.
We talked about that already.
And that,
Splitting the resources of Parks and Rec, Police, and Public Works
Yeah.
between two sites was just not realistic with the number of people that we have.
okay.
That's
Or New
why we
Year's
didn't
Eve
do that.
at midnight.
So I know maybe these two thoughts will spark some ideas around the table then.
Well,
I didn't mean to do that.
the Memorial Day isn't a bad, because you have the fireworks on Friday, then you have, because even though, talk about Rolling Thunder being another year now, because everyone's like, oh my God, they're gonna miss it. They had 315 bikes leave Jimmy's on Sunday, and then you had the Memorial Day, so I think it's just a big weekend for, welcome to summer, here's Herndon, and it's right in your face.
I don't run festivals or fireworks shows, or Friday Night Live, so I don't know what I don't know, but I just wanted to throw that out there as maybe that would make people happy. It would only be one fireworks show instead of two, so like this. But Yay Festival, I liked it too. I thought it was great. I loved the tall tables, and there was a lot of shade there. You just had to know where to look for it. And so next year people will know where to look for it. So, Mr. Town Manager.
Again, what really amazed me this year at the festival is the fact that we took 38 years of experience and kind of had to chuck that out the window and reinvent that sucker on the fly. And it truly is commendable to the staff of Parks and Rec. And it's funny, I was talking to Jeff Bentley, CEO of Northwest, on Saturday night. It was about 6:30, so he'd been in a couple days. And he's been in the role, and he still had a big grin on his face. And he said, "Look, your people are amazing. Just what they do, how they manage this event, how good they are what they do." And they said, "Those public work guys, man, they just bust it." And they were just. And I said, "So you're not, are you having any problems?" He goes, "No, anytime we have anything, immediately it gets addressed." So you all did a remarkable job being gracious guests down there and taking care of things across the board. I've never seen Maggie happier at a festival because she could secure the area better, and then we could secure down here. I think from a staff perspective, it showed incredible professionalism to work on your team and yours, and Maggie's, who is not here tonight. So congratulations.
On that note, will it be like a lessons learned or something encapsulating?
Oh, yeah.
We always do
Festival
that.
committee
Like
does it.
postpone.
Okay, they do, yeah.
We always do that as staff, so.
I just think this year would be extra
We
special.
certainly welcome all your comments and thoughts and suggestions,
I'd just
absolutely.
like to be able to, sure we have
Sure.
access to it.
Sure.
And also on that note, since Northwest Federal Credit Union actually allowed us to use their premises to do this, right? I think it would be appropriate for council to send them some kind of, letter, thank you note of appreciation,
Sure.
We can write
can
that.
do that, yeah,
We can write that.
yeah.
We could do a proclamation if you want to come pick it up.
I know, they are a huge integral part of,
Yeah.
Herndon
Why
Festival.
don't we see what,
and-
if they would
yeah.
like to come and
Yeah.
receive recognition, I
Yeah,
think that'd be
sure.
great, and if they
Yeah,
can't
let's
make
do
that
it.
happen,
Yeah.
we'll send them a letter.
Send us
I think we should
picture-
send a letter
a picture
anyway,
of it.
just
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that's a good idea. There were some great photos from the roof.
Some phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
we
a good
can-
idea,
We can
maybe.
get good pictures.
Yes, I saw Cindy on Friday morning when I had just seen her. Thursday night
Just a couple
at
hours
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And she said they were having their first reorg kind of meeting at 10 o'clock that day. She said, it's kind of like when you move and you get in your house and you're like, why did we put the couch on that wall? So there were probably a lot of those conversations over the weekend. So I think that we're in a good place. Do you have anything else for us? Okay, well, we do need to return into a closed meeting, so is there a motion to go into the meeting under, do I have to say it all again, Madam Town Attorney? I do. Section 2.23711A1, Code of Virginia, to discuss the specific public employee of the town relative to annual performance review.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Alrighty, and it's 7:31, we'll be back in about 5 minutes to finish up.